Josh, I've heard a little bit of the story of 6 seconds when you started out, and I think other people would be interested too, because a lot of people see 6 seconds as it is now, which is really the largest emotional intelligence network in the world, which really circles the globe. But when you and Annabelle and Marcia and Karen started 6 seconds, tell me a little bit, take me back to what it was like and what you were doing, and did you realize at the time that it was going to turn into interest around the world?
All right, well, let me set the stage a little bit then and say that it was the middle of a very difficult period for us. We had gone through a lot of upheaval in the school. There had been a year of very intense and unpleasant conflict, and we were sad, and we had this incredible sense of loss, and this sense that that this dream that we'd all been working on and Karen had been working for 30 years was imperiled. And so in some sense, starting 6 seconds was purely an act of hope. We said we want to take something from this situation. We want to share some of what we've learned. We have to do something. And so we sat around the table in Annabelle's kitchen and said, what can we do? And how can we take some learning from this experience and these years and carry it forward? And it was incredibly humble, and we had no vision of being a global organization. We had no vision of working with Fortune 50 companies. We thought we would be doing some consulting with local San Francisco Bay Area schools primarily, and sharing these methodologies wherever we could. So what ended up happening was we created a website because I knew how to do that. It wasn't any strategic plan. We just said, hey, well, let's do this. We know how. And started to get inquiries from people saying, well, how do I do this? And your approach sounds so interesting. How do you actually teach that? And those inquiries were coming from all over the globe. And they were coming from every sector. And we started to get people saying, well, I want to become certified in your methodology. And we didn't really know what that meant, but we thought, okay, well, if people want to learn how we do this kind of teaching and they want to do this kind of teaching, we'll do a train the trainer program for them. Not about any particular assessment, and at first it wasn't even very focused on our own model. It was really focused on the methodology that we have and the way of making learning real. And the notion, emotional intelligence is often perceived as something fairly academic and theoretical, but fundamentally it's not academic. Fundamentally it's a very visceral human experience and process. And so we want that kind of learning to come to life. And yes, we have theoretical models and we're highly rigorous in our research base, and we use the latest science, and we make that something real for people. So they experience something, they reflect, they bridge their cognitive awareness with their emotional experience, and something starts to click for them. So that's the core of our methodology. And so we did this first training, I guess it was in '98, and we had 40 people come to that workshop, and they came from 6 different countries, and only about a third of them came from K-12 education. And so we started to see something fascinating. One was, here was this group of people from all different walks of life and all different places in the world, and they loved being together. Over and over and over, people said, I have felt so alone doing this work. I've been trying to make this kind of change. I've been trying to do this kind of teaching. I've been trying to advocate for this human essence coming into my work, into my organization, into my classroom, into my institution. And I know in my heart that when we bring in this human dimension, when we bring in this passion and even love into the work, and we help people connect at an emotional level with what they're doing and with each other, and they have this sense of belonging, and they have this sense of that who they are at their core is welcome here and part of what we're doing together, and that we're smart with our feelings instead of just sort of letting them happen however they happen. I know in my heart that that makes a difference, but I felt really alone in that. And so we had people coming together and experiencing this incredible sense of connection, and that's really what led us to want to create a global network.
And I've experienced that, and it really does make a difference. And Josh, one of the things that I wanted to say that is different about 6 seconds is that so many of the other models speak cognitively about emotions. And what I've experienced with 6 seconds is that you not only take it to a cognitive level, so we do talk about a lot of the process and a lot of the research and the studies, but you take it to an emotional level as well. Do you see that as a difference as much as perhaps I do from an outsider's perspective?
Absolutely. I think that, as I said, the science and the theory and the research is critical, and we are talking about a science, but we're talking about a science that is fundamentally about human beings. And if we keep it on an abstract level, we're developing cognitive intelligence. I'll just give you a little story. I was talking to my 2 kids about this, and they're 7 and 9 now. And we got talking about, well, what does Daddy do? Which is sort of a hard question to answer. and Patty, my wife Patty, said, well, do you know what emotional intelligence is? And Emma said, well, it's being smart about feelings. And I thought that was a very interesting answer, because Emma is very smart about feelings. If you ask her what is disappointment, she'll tell you that it's a mixture of sadness and frustration. But if she's feeling disappointed, she won't process her disappointment effectively. If her brother is upset, she'll be irritated with him for being upset instead of showing a concern for him and taking care of his feelings. Now Max, when we talked a little bit more, and I said, well, do you think that's it? Is it just being smart about feelings? And Max said something to the effect of, in 7-year-old terms, it's also being smart with feelings. In other words, using your feelings in a way that is smart. So, and that's Max. Max can't tell you what disappointment is, but when he is disappointed, makes peace. And when somebody else is sad, he connects with them. So it's this blend of head and heart. We need to be smart about feelings. We need to be smart with feelings. And this is a fundamental distinction between 6 seconds and almost every other methodology for exploring this subject. We don't care if somebody is smart about feelings unless they're also smart with feelings. We need to put those 2 things together, because simply knowing something, I used to be a teacher, and you don't get an A in my class for being smart. You get an A in my class for being smart and doing the work and showing up.
I loved the explanation, and I have to tell you that I borrowed it when I'm explaining it to people. And I may know how to be a wonderful gardener. I may know everything about plants. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have a beautiful garden.
Right. Yeah.
So unless you put it into action, unless you actually utilize it, it's just knowledge. It's not until it's put into practice and you're actually using it that you create the differences that you've seen.